Welcome to Beyond by Wings, the business side of dentistry, brought to you by Edwards and Associates PC. Join us as we discuss how to build your dental practice, optimize your income, and plan for your future. This podcast is distributed with the understanding that Edwards and Associates PC is not rendering legal, accounting, or professional advice. Listeners should consult with their business advisors before acting on any of the information that is shared. At Edwards and Associates PC, our business is the business of dentistry. For help or more information, visit our website at eandassociates.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond by Wings. In today's episode, we have a very special guest. His name is Sean Garner, an entrepreneur, marketing strategist, and founder of Sean Garner Consulting, where he helps service-based businesses simplify their marketing and scale with confidence. As a former gym owner and StoryBrand certified guide, Sean combines real-world business experience with clear, actionable strategies that actually work. From websites and funnels to messaging and SEO, he helped hundreds of businesses become the go-to choice in their market. If you're ready to stop guessing and start growing, let's welcome Sean Garner to the show.
Man, Ash, thank you so much. You know, whenever you read stuff like that, you always make me sound a lot cooler than I really am. So I hope I can deliver for everyone today and they take some value from it. But thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, of course, anytime. So let's talk a little bit about the episode itself. Now, 2025 was very interesting. We saw a lot of changes, especially in the marketing realm. Why? Because AI, again, I know we've been using that a lot, but I don't think we're going to go anywhere without AI anytime soon. So AI was just slowly starting to enter the mass, right? And people were starting to utilize AI in marketing platforms and other platforms. And today, you know, I was thinking that we could narrow down on AI in marketing as it works in 2026. So basically to talk about the differences, what's changed, and are there certain tools of AI that's still being underutilized? So I was just thinking, you know, for people that are new maybe, which will shock me, but still I'm sure there's people out there that's new to this platform. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about GEO versus, you know, what people commonly used to know as SEO?
Yeah, great question.
The similarities.
Great question. So at our agency, we use the term SEO, and typically that was traditionally thought of search engine optimization. But now we know that it has changed. We don't call it search engine optimization anymore. Now we call it search everywhere optimization, because ultimately that's what it's about. It's about being found everywhere your customers are looking, because they're looking more than just Google now. They're looking on ChatGPT, their favorite LLM. They're looking inside of, you can even a lot of social platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, they're allowing their content to be optimized or indexed. So that way, everything that you do in your marketing needs to be optimized so you're showing up everywhere your customers are looking. And a lot of times people think they're going to hire an SEO agency like mine, and there's like some special magic button that I push behind the scenes that now allows everything to be seen by Google or their favorite crawlers like ChatGPT, and like we're gatekeeping all this stuff. But that's not at all what it's about. I think when people understand what SEO really is, it gives them a clearer picture on what they need to do to show up on these places. It's not hacks. It's not tricking or trying to pull one over on Google or anything like that. It's only about being clear and proving it. That's what it is. And so I see so many businesses struggle with this concept because what they're doing is they're trying to chase the tactic of the month, right? Oh, well, this month it says I need to be adding FAQs to every page. And you know, and this month it says I need to be doing more blogs or need to be doing link building. And they're chasing these tactics without understanding the overall strategy, which is at the end of the day, You want more patience in your practice. How we do that is we need to show up everywhere our customers are looking. And to do that is not about trying to chase the trick or the technique of the month, but by having a holistic strategy that makes sure your content, your website, your marketing collateral is set up in such a way that is found by the crawlers and the customers. The crawlers are like the things like Google and the LLMs like ChatGPT, and the customers, that's obviously the patients that you're called to serve.
You hit all the major points. I like the fact that you trickled it down to the overarching theme, which is you just want more patience.
Yeah. There's not, I think that if you, there's sometimes like a level of ignorance, right? So you don't know what you don't know. And so whenever, as a dentist, you didn't go to med school, to dentist school to learn how to do marketing. That was just like the after. You just wanted to take care of your patients. That's all you wanted to do. And so because of that, it's easy to kind of get lost in the noise of things, especially around digital marketing, to where you think that you need the tactic, but ultimately you need to make sure that the tactic is driving the result. There's tons, there's meta ads, right? There's Google ads, there's LSA, PPC, there's website SEO, content, video podcasting. There's all of the tactics that you can do, but ultimately you can't pay bills on vanity metrics, right? It's all about how many patients you're serving. So if none of this stuff is driving an ROI to getting more patients in the clinic, it's just vanity metrics that are just, something you can tell your friends about.
That's right. So now let's go a little bit into the behind the scene behind, SEO and GEO, just a little bit. I know we're probably going to get a little technical, but that's okay. I feel like our listeners can handle it. So starting with SEO, and again, we can go far back as to, when it first started, its purpose and how it was utilized versus GEO, and, what it focuses on when it's trying to generate the results for its users, whereupon, it gives you the suggestion of, maybe going to a certain practice.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you this, Ash. GEO, AI SEO, and then traditional SEO, it's all ultimately the same thing. It's all, that's why we, at our agency, we don't try to jump on the buzzwordy. We still call it SEO because it is search everywhere optimization. Ultimately, you want to just be showing up wherever your customers are looking. So in order to do that, you need to have a holistic SEO strategy where we're not chasing a tactic. We are following a proven strategy to make sure that you're showing up in all of these places. So in order to do that, there's really five pillars of this SEO strategy that you need to make sure that you have in place to make sure that you are being found everywhere your customers are looking for. And how I always explain it and relate it to is it's kind of like building a house, right? So if you wanted to have your house be worth as much money as possible because you wanted to sell it, there's certain key things that we wanted to check. In the SEO world, our digital house is our website, our content, our marketing. If we want it to rank or show up as high as possible, there's certain pillars or things that we need to have in place to make sure that we are checking all the boxes that I say the two C's, the crawlers and the customers, because Google's, the LLMs, the ChatGPTs, they all have their little indexers that are going out there and trying to find out, again, who's being the most clear and who deserves to be where they're at. And so the four pillars that you really need to understand and focus on when it comes to SEO, and listen, if you got an SEO agency that you're working with, you need to write these things down and ask them how they are doing this thing, because my personal frustration, red flag, and rant is there is a lot of agencies that are taking advantage. I see this primarily in the medical field and in the home services because they typically aren't as well versed in things like technical SEO and digital marketing. So it's easier to get sold on, oh, I'm doing SEO, but you don't really know what SEO is. And so you're buying things or paying for things that aren't actually moving the needle forward and getting you that ROI. So that's my side note rant there for you for a second there, Ash.
But I agree with you. I'm actually very happy that you're going there because it's true. I feel like a lot of my clients are buying things that they don't understand. So let's help them understand.
Yeah. So I will say this for more context. I love the intro. That was super kind of you. Also, more things about me. I'm not just some marketing guy that is coming up with these ideas of my own. My wife and I, we actually own several local service-based businesses, specifically in the medical world. So we own a functional medicine clinic and an HRT clinic. We own a medical spa that does IV therapy, red light saunas, and infrared treatments and stuff like that. So we know not just digital marketing, but specifically local service medical practices. So as I'm saying this stuff, this isn't just some ideas that I had. This is stuff that we test in our own practices and our own medical spas as we're doing all this stuff. So that's just more background context on us still. Okay, so the 4 holistic pillars that you need to make sure that you have to show up everywhere your customers are looking. The very first thing is something that's called your technical SEO. Now, this is a lot of the behind the scenes things. This is things that are called like your site title tags and meta descriptions. Pretty much you can't see that stuff if you're just visually looking at a website. So how I like to relate to that, to the house analogy, that's like a foundation of a house, right? If a foundation has a crack on it, you really don't know unless you've done some testing to be able to see, or maybe you can see some things where maybe there's some shifting, there's some things on the outside where there's some settling going on, but you really can't tell unless you know what you're looking for and how to dive down in the back end of the website. So the same thing applies. So imagine it doesn't matter how awesome the house is. If it's got a cracked foundation, nobody's going to want it. Same thing when it comes to your SEO. These crawlers, the Googles, the ChatGPTs, they are not going to trust your website or want to have it show up higher if it's got a cracked technical SEO foundation. So a lot of websites, they've hired a web designer to build them this beautiful looking website, but none of the technical SEO is set up properly. So things like their heading tags, their site title tags, meta descriptions, there's broken links on the back end. And so Google doesn't trust those websites no matter how good and clear that it looks. The second thing that you need to have in place with your SEO is what we would call your UX, or your user experience. So that is when somebody lands on your website, do they take an action? So thinking about that from the house analogy, right? That's going to be like having a really good floor plan on the house. So you can walk in, imagine you open up the front door and all of a sudden you're standing in a bathroom and you have to like step over the bathtub to get into the living room. And then you're in a hall closet, then you're in the master bedroom, then you find the kitchen. Like, it's just a really bad floor plan. It doesn't matter how big the house is, how good the foundation is. If it's got a really bad floor plan, it's not going to be worth as much. Same thing with your website. For your SEO, you need to have a really good user experience. Google's, ChatGPT, they can tell if they sent somebody to your website, if somebody was looking for, restorative dentist Dallas, right? Or they're looking for the best implant dentist near them, and you show up in one of these places and somebody clicks on your website and then immediately clicks back onto the results. Well, those tools can see that. And so they know, okay, somebody was looking for an implant dentist. I showed them this website. They immediately came right back. Maybe I shouldn't show that website anymore. And so it starts to hurt it because it's got a really bad user experience. So maybe you've got really unclear calls to action on your website. You're saying contact us versus book your appointment or schedule your first appointment or become a patient. Maybe you've got a really slow website that takes forever to load, so people are just bouncing back up. There's a lot of different things that have impact the user experience, and it makes people want to bounce off, which again, hurts your rankings and the ability to be clear and prove why you should rank where you are. Next, the third thing that you need is your content. So think about this as like your square footage, right? If the house is bigger, it's going to be worth more money. Same thing with your digital house, your website. The more content it has, the more Google is going to trust it. Now, this just isn't about spamming a bunch of AI generated blog articles. Remember, SEO, the O is optimization. So it's about taking the real things that are happening in the real world and putting them on the website. Your practice needs to clearly showcase on your website. You need to have individual landing pages for every service that you provide, an about page that talks about you, all the different providers that you have on site. You need to have a service area or a locations we serve page. We need to have testimonials, case studies, before and afters, all of the things and the results that you're getting and the places that you're doing it and the service you're providing in the real world have to be translated on the digital world, because these crawlers, they're not going to do the work for you. They're not going to guess that if you do cosmetic dentistry, that you do all-on-4 implants, or that you do specific other type of implant. You have to tell them. And so we also have to prove that we're knowledgeable. And I know providers that have been, 10, 20, 30 years, but they're not continually adding content on their website. Well, in the eyes of Google, they don't know that. And so we always want to be adding information on our website that positions us as an authority on all things around our industry. Because if not, how does Google really know who to trust, right? We have to take all the things that are happening in the real world and put them onto this digital world. The last pillar of this SEO is called your authority. And so in the digital world, that's things like backlinks, citations, and that's just another website that Google already trusts, linking back to your website saying, hey, you can trust these guys. In the real estate analogy world, that's like having being in a really good neighborhood, right? If you're in a great neighborhood, you can maybe have a little bit of a smaller house as long as it has a solid foundation and a good floor plan, and it's going to do well. Same thing in the digital world. We have to, if we want to get the most out of this digital real estate and show up everywhere, we have to be acquiring new links on a regular basis. Now, there's tons of spammy services that will just tell you that they're going to get you backlinks. For a local medical practice, the most important thing is context. So getting those local Chamber of Commerce links, getting any local business directory links, sponsoring local events, local charity events, local sports teams to where you can get that backlink on your website, again, helps prove a ton of context for Google to be able to trust you. Now, in the eyes of AI specifically, it treats backlinks a little differently. So whenever we're doing this, this is why if we do all of these things properly, we're going to show up just as well on Google as we are on the ChatGPTs and the AI overviews. Because how LLMs, specifically like a ChatGPT, are looking at these backlinks, they're not necessarily looking at the source URL or the website it's coming from. They're looking for your brand mentions. So whenever we are doing link building and really building up the authority of a brand now with the search everywhere optimization, not only do we want to get links from high quality pages that Google already trusts, but we also want to do digital PR and making sure that our brand mention and our brand name is getting on all of these other big national directories and publications that Google already trusts. So whenever these LLMs are crawling the information to try and find information out about our brand, they're looking at the sentiment and seeing how people are speaking about us. What services are they talking about to associate with us? So it knows, again, to be clear on what we are and where they should be putting us. So when we look at those 4 pillars, we've got our technical SEO, which means we've got all the backend stuff set up how Google likes it. We've got a really good user experience, so people are taking action on our website because it's really clear what services we offer, how we're going to make their life better, and what they need to do to start being one of our patients. We've got a lot of content to our website, so we're consistently adding content on a regular basis, and we're always building up our site authority by getting backlinks, citations on a regular basis. If we're doing those things correctly and consistently, we don't have to chase tactics, because we're covering all of the basis that these crawlers and that these customers are looking for to make the decision to become our patient. And what I see a lot of people do is they are getting sold on, well, now we need to do AI SEO, or now we need to do GEO. And they're doing the tactic of the month instead of having that holistic strategy in place that's going to make sure that you show up everywhere that your customers are looking.
Great point. Great point. Great point. Emphasis on the word authority. Your brand needs to establish authority.
Yeah, they've got to trust you, right? Because
Right.
When somebody comes to your website, they only know what you tell them. They don't know how long you've been in business. They don't know how many patients you've helped with. So if you're not consistently getting reviews, you're not building that site authority with those links and stuff, Google's not going to know. So if they're not going to know, they're not going to guess and try to figure it out for you. And that's where I see medical practices that have been in business for a long time get frustrated because some new grad gets out of school and he does it right. And 6 months to a year later, he's ranking #1. And the guy that's been in the city for, 20 years, he's like, I don't understand. I've been here so long. Well, it's because you're doing the same things that you were doing 10, 20 years ago when your practice first opened and you haven't changed in anything. That's why you're getting past.
That's right. And I want to also talk a little bit on your third pillar that you mentioned regarding the content.
Yeah.
It is very true that the more content you have out there, the more, I should say, unique content that you have out there that's just not, mass produced by some kind of generative AI. If it's authentic, true, and it serves your brand, and you do talk a little bit about what you do, what sets you apart, it will help the LLMs out there, the GPTs out there, to establish your brand and to help you establish the authority. So you show up on those search engines. Now, I know this is where a lot of our listeners, especially practice owners, are getting scared. Why? Because they can see that we're going in a direction where we're saying, hey, just hiring a marketing company isn't going to cut it. There's some work that needs to be put in from your end to the business owner's end. And here's what I have to say. You don't have to invest a set time every day to do this. Now, aside from doing this podcast, I also help out dental practice owners on the management side. And one thing I always talk about is setting up something that I like to call CEO time. So once a week, when you're setting up your CEO time, allocate a portion of that day towards this. And even if you're working with a marketing company that can help you to publish the content out there, help them out with the material. Because again, they're experts in their field and you're an expert in your field. They don't know what you know and you don't know what they know. But if there's a nice synchronization, collaboration, it can be worked. And the other thing is, it's also important to keep in mind that you're running a business, a for-profit business. In other words, let's say you're working with your marketing person and you figured out, okay, you know what? We have a lot of competition right now. However, none of our competition is focusing on emergency dental. Why don't we open up an extra day during the week or extend our hours for a few months and heavily focus on that just to see? In other words, running a campaign. If you are talking with your marketing person about the strategy, they can come up with a game plan that will work with you. In other words, that content needs to emphasize on that new edition in a way where it's reachable to these people when they're doing their searches. Now, you may have this great idea, you may have this great plan, but if you're not putting the word out there, using all the content materials that's out there, they're not going to know. So, and the other thing I also have to emphasize on is it's not like as Sean mentioned, it's not a button that he pushes. It's going to be an ongoing thing. So I feel like developing a good relationship is a key factor here with the marketing person or the people, and they need to be as equally invested in it as much as you are for it to be a good partnership.
Yeah, can I tell you how to do it?
Of course.
Okay, so that I love what you said, because what you don't realize, even before ChatGPT, before people even worried about that. If you hired a marketing agency to start creating content for you, guess what? They had to go to Google and find the information out on there, and they're just pulling what they can find from Google because they are not the industry expert that you are. They are not the person that's devoted themselves to this career. They are a copywriter or a marketer, and so they know frameworks of copy and things that we need to do, but they don't have your unique perspective. Same thing. Now it's a lot easier, right, with ChatGPT, but it's the same concept. You go to ChatGPT and you want to find out, restorative dentist, blog article content, and you start writing stuff around that. Well, it's just pulling what it can pull from there. So what we do is there's three ways that we have done this for our clients that we work with that works really well. Because AI content is not bad. AI content without context is horrible. And so in order to get great results from using AI platforms to help generate ideas and stuff, the more context that you can give it, the better. So for us, what we do to get context from our clients is one of three things. One is, I love the CEO time that you said, Ashes. So we will give them some topics that we will want to write about, and we'll tell them, hey, this month, I want you to open up your computer, open up a screen recording thing like Loom, and we just want you to rant on this topic for a little bit. Don't worry about having any structured thoughts. Just give us your opinions about it, things that you've seen, maybe patient examples that you've had, and just rant. And so that way we're able to get all of their unique context, so our copywriters can use that as they're writing articles. So it's not just a generic article found of anything else that somebody can pull from ChatGPT or Claude or Google. The second thing that we will do is we interview them. So we have monthly strategy calls with all of our clients, and we kind of do the same thing. If somebody's really busy, hey, these are the topics that we're wanting to talk about this next quarter. Give us your thoughts, opinions on this. And so we'll record that call for them so they can tell us pros and cons, things they want to do, directions they want to emphasize, maybe their contrarian opinion on certain procedures, so we can get all of that context. The third one, though, Ash, this is the silver bullet right here, the secret sauce. If you really wanted to stand out online as the industry leader for your dental practice, this is what I think that you should do. You should start a video podcast. Because when you're doing it, you are not doing it with the idea of trying to have the next Joe Rogan Experience podcast and having it a big context. What you're doing is, hey, guess what, Ash? You're busy if you're an entrepreneur and a business owner. So what you need to do is you need to get the greatest leverage return of investment on your time to make all of these things happen. Because I'll tell you this, you have to do those things. Those 4 pillars of SEO, if you want to show up everywhere, you have to do those things. You can't just do part of them, because just like if you try to do part of them with your house, it's going to fall. It's not going to be worth as much. You have to do those things. So you have to find out how you can get the greatest return of investment on your time as a busy practitioner to make those things happen. And I believe it's a video podcast. And so this is what I would do if I was a dentist and I truly wanted to have the dominating practice in my area. I would start a video podcast. On that video podcast, it could be a solo show. You could interview people in the area, other providers and stuff that you're friends with. But the point of the show would be try to get a 15 to 30 minute episode where you are talking about a specific topic, treatment, things that people would be interested in about you. And on that, you now, out of that 15 to 30 minutes, have 15 to 30 minutes of context over that topic. So you can now put that as a long form video inside of YouTube. You can then use a Spotify to put it on Spotify, Apple Music and stuff like that. So those are all, guess what? Places that these LLMs are scraping data from. So now you're showing up there. But now I have a show notes page on my website. So I've got a podcast blog on my website that's continually adding those show notes. I'm embedding that YouTube video on there, which again, we talked about those 4 pillars of SEO. That's adding more content to my website, and it's showing me as an authority on things dental services. Then what I'm doing is I'm going to take the transcript from that and I'm going to spin that up into a blog article that is written less like show notes, but more of an easy digestible piece of content. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send out a list to market to my patients that have come in before, because guess what? Not every one of your patients wants the weekly email of here's your teeth cleaning special, your whitening special, or anything like that, right? We want to send them emails that are things of value to help them with their health and things like that. So we can write an email to promote the podcast episode. We can use a tool like a Riverside FM, which is like a podcast recording platform for like $29 a month. You can record it through there, and it can even help you chop it up into some short form content. So now you get those shorts that you're posting on social. You get all of that for 15 to 30 minutes a week, and you're going to get way more than your competition, because I guarantee you that might have sounded like a lot to you, but if you truly want to dominate in your area, your competition's not doing it. So it's a great opportunity to add all of that context that you need to get that unique content, to collaborate with your marketing agency, to make all that stuff happen so you stand out online.
That's true. And there's plenty of actually third-party companies that can help you with all of that.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't have the time. So, no, great points. I love that you emphasized on the content bit, and also how if the time is managed in a way, it can be done. And sometimes, it does sound like a lot when we're talking about it, but once you get to it, you realize, because it's true, the AI, I mean, we're not dinging on AI. We're just saying, it's part of our truth that everybody uses it. And there's a way where it can help you, just like how the customers or the patients are using it to find you. You can utilize it too. But what's that coin term these days? AI plus human. So that part, I mean, as of right now, that's still in effect, right? I don't believe AI is at a point where it can do everything, but you can utilize various AI platforms to help you create the content. Or if you just don't have the time, use third party companies. Heck, as far as I know, marketing companies may even offer additional services where they can help you with that. You know, just talk to your person. Okay, that's good. That's good. Uh, you talked about not focusing only on the way the website looks, right? Because there's plenty of companies that can do that, but on the back end, a lot of things might be broken. Can you talk a little bit about if there's a way clients that are using existing marketing companies for them to figure out if it's broken?
Yeah, great question. So first off, there's just the user experience side. And so this is what I would say. Open up your website and don't scroll. And then without scrolling, can you clearly see what do you do? How do you make your life better? And what do they need to do to get it? Because I can tell you that a lot of the websites that I look at, I'll do this. I do this exercise with people all the time whenever they'll book like a free strategy call with me. And they're like, well, yeah, but if you scroll down a little bit, then you can understand what I do. Like, no. Customers aren't going to do that. We need to be clear and we need to be punchy right off the get-go. Like, let's move. If it's really that important, let's move it up higher on the website so we can answer those questions really, really clearly as quickly as possible. Here's just as an example, here's a headline of a dentist that we work with, and it's pretty clear. Tulsa implant and cosmetic dentist. Okay, that's pretty clear. Dental implants, all on four, cosmetic dentistry, and full service general care all under one roof. Call now, book an appointment. It's very, very clear what you need to do to work with that company. And so that would be the first thing is do your own self audit. Look at your website or show it to somebody that doesn't know you and ask them those three questions. The second part's a little bit more like technical dorky, but what you can do is there's certain free plugins that you can get. There's one that I really like to use. It's called Detailed SEO. It's just a Google Chrome plugin that you can get and you can add it to your website. And what that does is it quickly shows you the site title tag and meta description, but most importantly, the heading structure for your website. So what we have found most of the time is if you've hired a design, this is getting some dorky stuff here. But
No, that's fine. I'm actually taking notes here. Detailed SEO plugin.
Detailed SEO plugin. It's by Ahrefs, but it's a free plugin that you can get, and that's where you can quickly, like whenever I just do it by habit now. Whenever I open up any website, I fire up that plugin and I just quickly check like what's their site title, what's their meta description, and then the other thing that I want to look at is heading structure. So people might not know this, but whenever you're designing a website, you may have seen things like H1, H2, H3s, like whenever you're even just like in using like a Google Doc or something like that. Well, people, if you don't understand this, people will think that what that means is that's just changing the size of the font, but it's not doing that in the HTML website world. What that is doing is that is setting the priority in the eyes of these crawlers of what the most important thing on your website is. And it needs to follow a specific hierarchy structure. So for example, we only need to have one H1 on every page. We need to have one, we can have multiple H2s, H3s, H4s, and so on, but they need to be nested underneath each other. So if you were just to look at your website, copy all of the copy and like paste it into a Google Doc, and you just looked at the words and how the heading structures were organized, does that make sense? Because most of the time, if you look at websites that I find where their technical SEO is broken, they have multiple H1 tags because the designer thought that just changed the size of the title, and they didn't realize that that affected the priority of how these crawlers like Google look at the website and rank relevant rankings. And so Google thinks that it's broken if you have multiple H1 tags because you should only have one per page. It also thinks it's broken if your site title is too long or your meta description is too long, because there's certain frames that we want to keep everything in. Typically, like for your site title tag, what we always tell clients is we always want to keep that around 65 characters. And then for your meta description, we want to keep it less than 155 characters, because if it's too much, that's stuff that you can't see when you're looking at a website. But whenever you go to Google and you like typed in, like implant dentist near me or whatever, and those little thing, the title and the description that you see on those websites, that is the site title tag and meta description. You can actually plug that into the backend of your website, and the words and the order and how you structure that is very, very important to make sure that you are showing up in those Google search results that way.
Great points. See, even I was confused about the H1s, H2s. So, wow.
Yeah, it's not just to make it look pretty or change the size. You only, like, if you took anything from like the dorky technical SEO stuff, you only want one H1 per page, which would be like one main headline per page. And in that H1, we want to try and include the main thing or main focus of that page.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, now just to segue a little bit away from the dorky technical stuff, you also mentioned about utilizing, I believe we were talking about collaboration, right? Like think about having a podcast and, having certain types of guests on there so you guys can, cross the information on there to help establish the authority better. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of collaboration, especially within your industry.
Yeah, I think that the people that I see have a problem with that have very much a poverty mindset. They think that, I can't work with that doc or I can't work with that business because they're going to take all of my clients. I think that's very much like kind of like a poverty mentality. Look at it. There is plenty of business for everyone. And I think that is one of the greatest opportunities is collaboration. In back in the day, Ash, we used to just call it networking, right?
Networking.
So it's a different way to network now in this digital world, because especially if you're the doc, if you're the practice that's going out there and establishing this and setting those trends, you're going to look like the industry leader. Because like I said, let's use the podcast thing as an example. No other docs in your area are doing that. Like that's what happens to a lot of people is they don't do those things, because this is what I see specifically in niche specific agencies. So if you're working with like a marketing agency that just works with dentists, for example, what's going to happen is all the marketing is going to start looking the same, because they're just changing the brand name, changing the city name, and using the same playbook for everyone. And they're not realizing that so they don't want to do the podcast thing because it's like, well, I haven't seen anybody else do that. That should be a good key indicator of like, hey, maybe we do something so we do start to stand out and we don't try to be just like every other person, because that's where it gets really difficult for businesses to stand out, is whenever they try to just do a different or better version than what their competition is doing, instead of trying to really be the trendsetter and going out there and being the one that's setting the pace. So it doesn't necessarily mean, listen, like if using the dental podcasting as an example, you're not interviewing all the other dentists in your area. Be smart, be creative, because there's lots of other ways that we can do it. Because whenever we are thinking about doing collaborations, it doesn't necessarily just mean we should be doing it with different docs. Or maybe it does, but we're not just doing it with dentists. Is there functional medical providers that we can connect with? Is there chiropractors that we could connect with? Like, who are the people in your area that have your patients? And those are the people that we want to collaborate with and do content and stuff with. But at the same time, I mean, I do think there's some strong boldness if you did bring other dentists and stuff in content and stuff, because it's instantly just, I mean, this might sound bad. It's going to show you pretty alpha there, Ash. If you're not afraid to have your competition on a podcast and talk to them, it just shows how confident you are with your practice. And so you're instantly going to trust the person that's doing the thing versus the thing that's on the guest of the thing.
That's right. And then the other people that you're collaborating with, I feel like they may be utilizing other platforms. Like, for instance, I have plenty of dentists that are not really practicing in a dental practice, but they're out there doing presentations. They're speaking at conferences, and they might be using other platforms that help with their self-brand. Now, if you collaborate with someone like that, not only will you be utilizing the platforms that you already have in place, but you'll also be kind of piggybacking off of that other person's other platforms that they're using. For instance, let's say Twitter. Well, X these days, right?
Yeah.
You may not be utilizing, but they are heavily known within the X community as a public speaker for Invisalign, let's say, right? And you can, because somebody who's utilizing those platforms properly, let's say if they did a podcast with you, guess what? They're going to tag you on their Twitter saying that I recently did this podcast with so and so, and we talked about this and that. And that puts you out there, within their population of whoever.
Yeah. Be all the places that you can with the greatest return on investment of your time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I love that you said this is what networking is in today's day and age. That's what it is.
We have new platforms to do it. Don't be fearful. Don't have a poverty mindset. Don't be stingy. Like if you go into it with the right attitude of, it's not like, hey, let's see what I can get out of this person or how I can leverage that relationship. Man, Ash, I truly believe you go out there and you just try to serve with every connection that you're in, you're going to win.
That's right. There's something I also ask some of my clients sometimes whenever, they're thinking like that. I ask them, hey, have you ever been to a Pizza Hut? Have you noticed how right next to a Pizza Hut, there's always like a KFC or a Wendy's or some other kind of fast food place? Why would they choose a location where there are other fast food places?
Yeah. People are used to going there for food.
Yeah, exactly. For options, because sometimes, there's something called complementing, right? Complementary competition. So if one person may not like this, they may want to go for another. Like for instance, with dental practices, you may have two general dentists operating out of the same zip code, and they may be offering the same services. Their expertise is in the same line of services, right? Pricing comparable, but one dentist is very holistic in their approach of providing their care, their services, even the products that they use. The other dentist, however, may be more, they may give you more, financing options when you go to them, right? They could be more cost effective. Now, depending on what's more important to you, you'll choose accordingly. It doesn't mean that, one person's going to get all the business and the other isn't. Because as you pointed out, there's plenty of business out there for multiple people to operate from the same zip code. Now, having said that, now there's a thing called balance, right? Now, it doesn't mean that you only look at opening up a practice in a city where you bought it your house because all your friends bought their houses there. And there's already like 4 dental practices in every corner. So you do have to look at that. Location is certainly important, but at the same time, don't be fearful. Just to add on to what you were saying, Sean.
Yeah, there's and again, this is a tactic, not the tactic. So this is just a tool that you can use. That's what I always tell people is don't get too lost in the tactics that you forget the strategy. If that doesn't make sense to you, don't shut everything down that we've talked about so far in this episode because you don't like that one thing. That's a tactic, but overall the strategy is, what do we need to do to grow the brand so we get more patients and shares?
Right. And being proactive continuously. Good. I think for one episode we shared enough. What do you think, Sean?
I mean, I can keep going, but I don't want to blow people's mind too much to where, it's like information overload. They're like, now, what was that? SC what? No, yeah. So hopefully this gave people some actionable things where they can at least do one of two things. One, they can start doing this stuff for themselves today, or two, if you're working with an agency, you can say, hey, I want to make sure we're doing this stuff right here with our SEO. Or if you're going to start looking for an agency, you know exactly what you need to be asking to make sure that this stuff's getting done so you do show up everywhere your patients are looking.
That's right. And if one of them or two of them decide to reach out to you, Sean, directly, how would they do that?
Yeah, or 3 or 4 or 5. We're not particular,
Yeah,
but I will say that. So one thing that is unique about us is we only work with one industry type per service area. So that's another kind of agency red flag that you should always look at, because if some agency has promised to help you rank number one and they're doing the same thing for your competition in the city, how is that going to happen? But anyway, the best way would be to reach out to us on our website. It's just seangarner.co, SEANGARNER.co, seangarner.co. But specifically for your audience, if they go to seangarner.co/one word beyond bite wings, what they'll be able to do is they're going to get a specific thing that I think that would make most sense to your audience. So we didn't even get into this part of SEO, which is the Google Map Pack, and specifically Google reviews. I see so many practices that struggle to consistently get reviews to prove that they're actually serving patients. We've got a whole thing that we give away to people, that will give away to your audience. That's going to be the exact scripting, messaging, and sequencing that you need to do to get more reviews from your patients. So you just go to seangarner.co/beyond bite wings, and we'll get that set up for them.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And thank you so much, Sean, for doing that.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you so much for the opportunity. Like I said, hopefully somebody gets some value out of it, so we can get more dentists serving the people that they're called to serve.
Right. No, I'm sure they will. Well, thank you again so much for being on the episode today.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. You guys have an awesome day.
Thanks for listening today. Be sure to subscribe to Beyond by Wings on your favorite podcast platform. For more information, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, or reach out to us on our website. You can also shoot us an email at info@eandassociates.com.